If you're a physician with a PC, you probably wondered this at some point. Can I deduct anything I have to wear to clinic or the hospital through my PC? What about my scrubs? What about dry cleaning the scrubs? What about the shoes I wear in clinic or my white coat or the sweater under the white coat? These are all different flavors of the same question. So let's walk through how to think about all of them. The short answer is that some of it deducts cleanly, some of it doesn't, and the route through the PC matters more than you might think. So we start with the same starting point as every deduction question, the general rule. Was the expense incurred to earn income? That's really the bar. So that's where we start with scrubs too. For clothing though, there's a second filter the Income Tax Act applies. That's where things get a little more interesting. So that second filter is in section 18(1)(h). The Act says personal or living expenses aren't deductible, and clothing is the textbook example here. CRA's administrative position has been consistent for decades. Clothing is presumptively personal, even when you only wear it for work. A sweater you only wear to clinic is still a sweater. That's the default. The interesting part here is the exception and the route. So two routes are available in theory. The first is if you personally claim clothing as an employment expense, that route runs into section 8(2) of the Act, which says employees can't deduct anything unless specifically permitted in section 8, and it doesn't permit clothing, so that route is closed. The second route is the PC paying for or reimbursing the item as the employer. That changes the analysis, and it's where things can work cleanly when the item falls into the right category. So the rest of this video is about that route and about which items fall into which category. Now, I don't want you to blindly trust me or any other accountant for that matter. So let's take a look at the precedent to understand why and the why behind how this all works. There's really no case law here, just clear sections of the Income Tax Act that explain how the rules actually work. So first, section 18(1)(h), that's the default rule. Personal expenses are not deductible, and CRA treats clothing as personal. But section 6(1)(a), that's where we get into the general employee benefit inclusion rules. The key point is CRA's long-standing administrative position where the employer provides a distinctive uniform the employee must wear or protective clothing required for the work. That's generally not treated as a taxable benefit. The corporation can deduct the cost, subject to reasonableness. And third, this is also where things get interesting. The CRA has a longstanding administrative guidance that laundry and dry cleaning costs follow the treatment of the underlying clothing. So if the clothing is a distinctive uniform or protective clothing, reimbursement of cleaning costs is, it follows the treatment of the underlying item. But we'll come back to that in a minute. There's also section 67 sitting in the background, which says every deduction has to be reasonable. So that comes up later a bit too. CRA hasn't said anywhere in writing that medical scrubs specifically are a distinctive uniform or protective clothing. That's not really how administrative guidance usually works. What CRA has done is publish examples, and the two clearest examples in the source material are these. The first is a shirt with the employer's logo on it that the employee is required to wear. That's the textbook distinctive uniform. The second is safety footwear plus other gear like respirators or safety glasses, stuff like that. That's textbook protective clothing. Scrubs and white coats aren't named in CRA's published guidance, so we have to look at the facts. But practitioners generally agree that they fit the categories CRA does name, and that's how they get handled in practice. They're visibly identifiable medical attire, which is what the distinctive uniform category is built around, and they're worn for infection control in clinical settings. But the stronger your facts on required use in clinical function, the stronger the position. So this isn't really a huge stretch for most physicians. Now, the most common version of the question I hear is, I only wear it for work, so it has to be deductible, right? Let's look at dress shoes you only wear in clinic, the cashmere sweater under your white coat, dress pants you wear at work. Yes, those generally don't pass the test. The test isn't, do I wear it elsewhere, The test is this a distinctive uniform or protective clothing required for the work? Most professional dress fails that test, even when worn only at work. The rule draws a sharper line than you might think. Now, when the PC pays for clothing that doesn't fit the uniform or protective category, like dress shoes or shirts or the rest of your personal wardrobe, the main risk is at your personal level. The amount can be treated as a taxable benefit to you, either as an employee or a shareholder benefit if the facts point that way. The corporation can typically still deduct the cost as compensation, so it's not always denied at the corporate level, but you end up paying personal tax on the value of the clothing, and the amount can also create a reasonableness issue if it's really large. So the cleanest path is to keep ordinary clothing off the PC's books entirely. Now, reasonableness. Even when the category is right, Section 67 still applies. Every deduction has to be reasonable. And here's something not everyone knows. CRA publishes specific dollar thresholds for certain employee benefits. Gifts and awards is $500 a year. Overtime meals is $23. Social events is $150 per person. Non-accountable moving allowances is $650. So they quantify these things when they want to. They haven't published a number for clothing. That's not an oversight. It's a facts and circumstances standard. So CRA looks at the nature of the clothing, whether it's required, whether the amount is supportable. There's no real safe harbor to point at here. But what that means in practice, audit defense isn't a dollar figure, it's more documentation. Receipts, a modest annual budget tied to actual clinical use. Now, the cleaning question deserves its own short discussion here because there's actually a clean administrative position to point at. CRA's longstanding view is that laundry and dry cleaning costs for legitimate uniforms or protective clothing are not a taxable benefit when the employer reimburses them. The cleanest path is that reimbursement against receipts. That's what CRA guidance most clearly supports. There is an older administrative material recognizing that a reasonable non-accountable allowance for laundry can be non-taxable to the extent it's actually spent on cleaning. But if you go that route, your documentation needs to be especially strong. And the reverse is true too. If the underlying clothing isn't in the uniform or protective category, like dry cleaning on a suit, the cleaning follows it. Personal clothing means personal cleaning. Now, I tend to err on the conservative side. Your situation may differ. This is what I would recommend without knowing the specific facts of your case. Where the facts support it, PC buys scrubs directly or reimburses you on submission of receipts. Keep the receipts, keep the amounts modest, tied to actual clinical use. For laundering, the cleanest path is reimbursing actual costs against receipts. The same approach for the white coat holds, though white coats can vary a little more by setting than scrubs do. So the analysis is going to be a little more fact specific there. One technical point that matters for sole shareholder PCs: document this as employer compensation to you as employee, not as a shareholder distribution. Treating it as employee compensation puts the analysis under the employee benefit rules, which is where the uniform and protective clothing categories live in CRA's admin position. If the payment gets categorized as a shareholder benefit under Section 15 instead, the favorable treatment for uniforms and protective clothing generally doesn't apply. So paper trail should look like an employment expense, not a shareholder draw. Now, here are a few things people sometimes try to put through and really shouldn't. Ordinary shoes you wear in clinic. These are generally personal, even if you only wear them for work. Now, true safety footwear, like steel-toed boots designed to protect against workplace hazards, that's a totally different animal. Those can fall within the protective clothing category, but your regular comfy shoes that happen to be the ones you wear at clinic, those stay personal. Now, jackets, sweaters, anything that you could reasonably wear off-duty, that stays personal. And also your spouse's wardrobe. Many physician spouses who work for the corporation, they do administrative or corporate work, often from home. That is real work, but it doesn't require a uniform or protective clothing. Their wardrobe stays personal. If you're not sure on something specific, go back to the logo shirt or safety footwear comparison from earlier. If it's clearly a distinctive uniform required for work or protective clothing for work, it fits. If it's ordinary clothes that could reasonably be worn off duty for personal purposes, it generally doesn't. Now, this is general guidance, so talk to your own accountant about your specific situation before making a decision or figuring anything out. Now, in summary, this is a really commonly overlooked deduction. But if you remember anything from this video, something like scrubs could be deductible. Something like suits, probably not. The PC pays for the uniform and protective clothing. Personal wardrobe stays personal. And if you're not sure where something falls, the logo shirt or safety footwear test will get you most of the way there. Thanks so much, and I will see you in the next one.